We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio here on the Radio American Network. The topic under discussion today is what lies ahead for the Republican Party in terms of 2022, 2024, and beyond. The question on everybody's lips regarding Donald J. Trump is, will he or won't he? To help us delve into the latest figures, facts, and perhaps a little fortune-telling is LibertyNation.com author Jeff Charles. Welcome, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Now, Jeff, it seems almost certain that if President Trump chose to run again, he'd secure the party nomination, and probably within the first third of states. But that doesn't appear to mean that he's the only viable candidate. What numbers are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, a recent straw poll at a conservative conference had Florida Governor Ron DeSantis edging out Trump by a few percentage points. So he was the front runner according to that study. So if Trump decides not to run, I mean, the front runner could very easily be Governor Ron DeSantis. But in the top five, you also had people like Ted Cruz. You had Tim Scott. I mean, there are other contenders who could take up the mantle if Trump decides not to run. And what's interesting is that that all of these people are at the very least friendly to the MAGA or America First movement.
Yeah, very much so. It seems that those who are not so much behind the America First brigade, that they were polling dead last in that. And now this is a straw poll, so it's not overly scientific. However, these are people who would take part in this kind of poll. These are people who will go out and vote. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. And yeah, it may not be scientific, but I mean, anybody who's been paying attention to what's been going on the right is not surprised by this, right? I mean, the establishment is taking a back seat now, and you are seeing the more populist America First movement take over the reins, essentially. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did more of these polls and got similar results, because that's just the way that the conservative movement is going right now.
You'd imagine, although we have possibly learned our lesson that polls are not always reliable, but you never know. They do often indicate trends. So as you mentioned earlier, Ron DeSantis, he is most definitely what one would call an America First candidate. Now, why is it that the non-America First candidates, do you think, are doing so poorly at the moment?
Well, I mean, the answer is really simple, Mark. I mean, the establishment, they had their chance. They got more of a chance than they deserved. They were in control for decades, and they squandered the opportunity. They took every opportunity. They took every opportunity to miss opportunities. So, I mean, Obamacare is one example. They swore up and down that they were going to repeal Obamacare and replace it with something that relied more on the free market. What happened when they had controls of both chambers of Congress and the Oval Office? Nothing. That's just one example of how badly they've messed this situation up. And this shift that we're seeing now has been a long time coming. It was inevitable. I mean, we saw it with the Tea Party, and now that's kind of morphed into what we're seeing today. And the establishment is going to take a back seat. And while there are some in the establishment who do want to work with the America First movement and the MAGA movement, they read the tea leaves, they know what's going on. There are some that are just going to be stubborn and get left behind and probably lose their seats.
So they're reading the Tea Party leaves, as you say, Jeff. Now, I'd like to delve a little bit deeper here. It seems that the more activist media and the Democrats are getting a carte blanche to go after Donald Trump. But if the candidate come 2024 is not Donald Trump, they'll have to pivot to going after the America First agenda. Now, to me, this seems like it may not be the smartest move possible, but nonetheless an almost inevitable one, almost as if they'll have to start playing the ball rather than playing the man. What are your thoughts on that, Jeff?
You know, I think it is inevitable, although I have a sneaking suspicion that even if Trump is not the nominee, if he decides not to run, I think that they're still going to try to tie this to Trump, because they think that Trump is so toxic that putting him in the equation will tank the chances of a GOP victory. They're wrong, but I do think that that's what they'll try. These people can't let go of Trump. They love him. So, I mean, as much as they say they hate him, they love him. So they're not so even if he doesn't run, they're still going to try to make him the focus as much as possible. But I do agree that they're going to have to adjust the strategy, even if they're trying to put Trump into it and go after the overall movement. The problem is that they don't really understand the right. They don't understand the conservative movement. So a lot of stuff they say they're going to get wrong. They're going to lie, and it's going to be very easy to expose that lie. On top of that, Biden's presidency has been an utter disaster.
Well, Joe Biden's record will certainly be on the ballot ticket come 2022, which, as we know, because both of us have done maths, comes before 2024. And with that all-important midterms. So, Jeff, what's your analysis of how a potential Trump-DeSantis ticket, or DeSantis running with the approval of Donald Trump, or Donald Trump running and DeSantis not being on that ticket, how could the information of those two being deemed the future of the Republican Party sway the balance of power for the midterms? Or if such a matchup is on the horizon, are they better off keeping quiet about it until after the midterm results come in? What are your thoughts?
So what I think is going to happen, I think they are going to keep coy about it until after the midterm elections. And I do think that that's the smart move. Republicans stand to get some serious gains in the House and in the Senate in 2022, especially with the way Biden's presidency is going. Like I said before, it's been an utter disaster. He hasn't even gotten out of his first year yet, and we're dealing with a huge border crisis. We're dealing with hostilities in the Middle East. We're dealing with abhorrent jobless rates. And on top of that, the Democrats are trying to push through a very radical agenda that is only being stopped by Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. So it's only going to get worse for the Democrats. I don't expect this trend to stop. I mean, Biden's not going to turn it around. There's going to be another crisis after the next, and his team is going to mishandle it. So at this point, there doesn't seem to be a need to possibly shake things up by announcing a presidential candidate before the midterm. So I think they will wait until after, and then they'll assess what happened, and then they'll go forward from there.
One of President Joe Biden's main themes, both on the campaign trail and within his first couple of months in office, was unity. And now we haven't quite seen that stretch across the aisle in the chambers of Congress. But do you think that there'll be some unifying faction if the Democrats have a united target to aim at? And could that be why the GOP, Republicans and Conservatives, are keeping a little more quiet on who they want to run in 2024? Because if there's a unifying figure, that gives the Democrat Party a chance to coalesce against that, which does give the aura of unity.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because a few weeks ago, there was a report that Democratic operatives were talking about how they were going to make people like Marjorie Taylor Greene their big villain. They need a villain. I mean, and both sides do this. This is part of politics. They need a villain. So right now they're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm sure they'll loop in some others as well. But that's yet another reason to keep quiet about it until later, because you don't want to give them a major figure to coalesce around as far as attacking them. Let the progressive wing and the establishment wing of the Democratic Party continue to fight with one another. Right now, there isn't that much unity on that side. And I don't think that going after Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to work. They need a powerhouse. They need somebody at the presidential level. They need a Trump. They need a DeSantis. They need a figurehead on the right to go after. And right now, they don't really have it.
They did try and go after Senator Cruz for a little while, especially Cancun Cruz. But I think what you say about Marjorie Taylor Greene is probably spot on, but it's in the same way that Republicans have also targeted Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, in that they've created somebody who is almost a parody of the real person. And it makes for wonderful headlines. It makes for wonderful Twitter memes. But in terms of substance and actually uniting the party in form of this is the kind of policy we need to oppose rather than this the type of person we need to oppose, I don't think it's done very well for either side. Jeff Charles, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
And we'll be back with Liberty Nation just after this quick break. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Who are we? We are Americans that believe in liberty. We are a project of the nonprofit one generation away. We are patriots who apply the founding principles to the issues of today.
And they keep moving the goalposts on us.
We are educators and commentators who love America and the Constitution. Who are we? We are Liberty Nation.